So again, the Boston Globe was purchased from the New York Times Company. It used to be worth over $1 billion. They're assessed at that. He bought it for $70 million 6 years ago. He's the same guy who owns the Boston Red Sox. And Warren Buffett, who is one of the richest men in the world, the head of something called Berkshire Hathaway, really kind of brilliant, amazing guy, owns the Buffalo News and the newspaper in his hometown of Omaha. And you may have noticed he was a paper boy as his first job. So one thing that's happening is very wealthy individuals are kind of swooping in and rescuing certain newspapers and keeping them going. But that's not enough to save the whole industry. And there's Jeff Bezos, who's the owner of the Washington Post. Yeah, we're not going to watch the video there. I don't think we have to. There's a company called Trunk, also in the newspaper business. Okay, and used to be Tribune Media, now has a fancy new name. So, disadvantages, advantages of newspapers. Advantages, short closing dates. I send it today, it runs tomorrow. Fast response. So people, if they're going to respond to a newspaper offer, it's going to be, 99% of it's going to be the day it falls, the day it drops. Wide variety of formats, pretty broad coverage within a city. Generally poor print quality. You definitely can't do very good color in newspapers, even USA Today. So for a company for whom color reproduction is vitally important, like a beauty company, fashion, makeup, etc., you're just never going to get what you want out of newspapers unless it's a pre-printed insert that you provide them. And it has a short shelf life, so it's not really passed along too much the way magazines are. Yesterday's paper, and there's newspaper holding some fish and chips. So that's what happens to yesterday's paper. Not a lot of staying power for newspapers. I subscribe to New York Times Digital. I've read the New York Times ever since I've lived in New York. I now get a digital edition, which is $15 a month. They cleverly charge $5.95 a month for recipes. Home delivery is $36 a month. And this is the New York Times digital edition. As per my subscription, this is what I do when I get up, which is increasingly early. I will likely be sending you guys articles from the Times online from time to time. I think you're allowed to read one or two free, even though you don't subscribe, every month. Student subscription is $1 a week, $4 a month. And I believe you are allowed to share your, I don't know what happened here. Hang on. I believe, you can share your login maybe up to one person. So if you want to read the New York Times online, it's pretty cheap. And here it is. This occupies the first couple hours of my day. I think it's still the best newspaper in the world. But lots of ways to navigate. This is the digital front page with the top news on the left and editorial writing on the right. These are opinion pieces. They are not news. They're opinion pieces. The news here on the left, which is supposed to be objective, and is fact-checked before it is published. Yeah-ha-ha, yeah-ha-ha-ha-ha. Fact-checked before it is published. There we have banner ad, etc., etc., etc. I can also navigate by section here. Of course, with the New York Times Online, it's not just a flat, you see, I can get video, of course. Let's see what we have here. We can see anything. They put together some very interesting visual formats, almost like rich media, which if you scroll through them, So you've got pictures. This, of course, are the Hong Kong protests. Here's some editor's picks, some suggested content for me to look at. Here's another ad. Here's another picture. And I'm sure there is some video somewhere here. Okay. This is running a very, come on, what do you think? Okay. Weekly, something else they're doing. Okay, anyway, this is the Times online. It would cost you $1 a week, which is not too bad. Okay, back to where we need to go back to. Okay, and they have a lot of subscribers now. I think over half their subscribers are online and not print anymore. So it's successful. People like it. So here we got an online paper and a paper. So is an online newspaper internet, or is it a newspaper? And so what about a magazine? Is an online magazine magazine? Should it be included under magazine revenues, or is it online content and online advertising, right? Okay, some people think it's better for the environment for you to read your newspaper online. Let's see what this is. We're almost done, by the way, everyone. I'd be so happy to hear. I know this is a long segment. Okay, so here's some people saying that newsprint comes out ahead on carbon emissions. So, interesting. By the way, notice I'm getting DPAA ads now that I looked up the Digital Place-Based Advertising Association. They decided to target me for their annual summit. Digital Place-Based Advertising Association. Those pesky advertisers, right? So, anyway, so here's a bunch of information about online versus printed newspapers in terms of effect on environment, which we need to look at very carefully these days. Fake news. What has more fake news, newspapers or online? And I think, just think about it a minute, and I think that's or maybe a second, you'll know the answer. I'm not going to watch it. I think it's a repeat of the Freedom Dies in Darkness, which is the Washington Post ad, right? We played that a while back. What's the future of newspapers? Ooh. Will it all be online? What do you think, class? I think there'll always be some print, but maybe I'm wrong. How about bots writing newspaper content? No more reporters. So this basically is the idea. See, I told you we were almost done. This is the idea of press releases and news releases being scanned by a bot for keywords, and then artificial intelligence being used to transpose those keywords into a couple of paragraphs or a paragraph. So it's not investigative reporting, but it's the idea of taking, kind of raw content and turning it into articles. It is happening now to some degree. It's being tested, and there could be more of it. Automation is stalking us almost everywhere. Well, here we are, pretty much done. What did we do in this segment? Well, we reviewed our class on out-of-home, where we said that out-of-home is very similar to banner ads on the superhighway, and we looked at some pretty wild, if I may say so, out-of-home creative. It was very effective and provocative. We spent a minute or two talking about presenting, and the thing I really want you to take away is the tell 'em rule. What was that? What are the 3 aspects of the tell 'em rule? You tell them what you're going to tell them. You tell them what you told them. That's your presentation outline right there. Then we spent a fairly long time talking about newspapers. It's a fascinating topic, very integral to our country and important to us in many, many ways. I hope you found it useful, even all the film clips. And well, this is getting back to Alice, behind the looking glass or beyond the looking glass, and that's Humpty Dumpty falling down. Maybe that's the newspaper industry kind of getting fractured. And so this brings us to an end of our 4th class, and thank you guys very much.